Like I said, we heard from Republicans moments ago saying words like speech falling short, disappointing, inaccurate, very, very strong words from these Republicans. Want to go to another Republican, John Barrasso. He's a Republican senator from Wyoming. Senator Barrasso, good to have you back on the show. Appreciate it. We heard from Texas Congressman off the top there, Congressman Henserling, and he said he missed his lunch for this. Do you feel the same way? How do you think the president did?
Pointed in the president. They expected more from him. What they got was political rhetoric, and what they were looking for were details. You know, Congress still has the budget that the president submitted, which is going to double our national debt in the next 10 years. So I think we need to have that serious discussion. The Republicans have offered a plan. You know, the president talked about cuts, and he said he thinks he should use a scalpel instead of a machete. Well, I was a surgeon for 25 years. I know how to use a scalpel, and what the president has been using the last couple of years is a shovel to shovel the money out of Washington, taxpayers' money, and that's why now we're facing this incredible debt crisis where the president is asking us to raise the debt ceiling, something that when he was in the Senate, he said was a failure of leadership.
Senator, I do want to ask you about the debt ceiling, but let me ask you, you mentioned taxes, tax reform. A lot of people's ears, they perk when they hear taxes. It affects every single one of us. Many Republicans, they're saying that the tax issue, tax hikes, total non-starter. Yeah, we heard from Speaker Boehner not too long ago, said, look, everything's on the table. My question to you specifically is one idea that's been thrown out there is simplifying the tax code. So you lower the rates for everything in exchange for maybe some other things. Where do you stand on that?
We need a simpler tax code. I mean, tax day is coming up at the end of this week. People are having, it is a real challenge for people to fill out their own tax forms. It is much more complicated than anyone, and we spend lots and lots of money doing that as individuals. People have to live with these incredibly complicated tax laws. We need a simple, fair tax system. And you talked about lowering tax rates. The president talked about raising tax rates. And I have to tell you, our problem in this country isn't that we're taxed too little, it's that we spend too much. I think the more money you spend to Washington, all Washington does is spend it. I would encourage people to not send the money to Washington and to oppose any kind of a tax increase.
Let me counter with this, because we've heard from a lot of Republicans and we need to hear from a Democrat. We're hearing from the interim DNC chair, Donna Brazile, and here's what she has said. The vision behind his plan, President Obama's plan, is straightforward. Quite simply, President Obama's plan envisions an America in which we can all come together in a responsible way to guarantee jobs for all of those who want to work, support for all of those who have fallen into tough times, security for our families, and opportunities for our children. What's your reaction?
The best thing we can do for our children is give them a debt-free future. I know vision is kind of the word of the day coming out of the White House. 2 days ago, the word was balance. I think we need a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution. We need to get the spending under control. Families do that. If families overspend, they cut up the credit cards. That's what you need to do, get spending under control. And that's why we need a balanced budget amendment to this Constitution. We need to get the spending under control. That's our big problem in this country.
I think a lot of people, Senator, would agree with you that, balance needs to happen. But I think Americans have lost a little bit of faith because of what happened just last week. The 11th hour compromise was finally made to continue funding the government through September. So what can you say to Americans? I mean, point blank, is it possible for Democrats to work things out with Republicans here?
Well, I voted to keep the government open last Friday night. I thought it was the responsible thing to do. I would have liked to have more cuts to that number. That's a budget that should have been passed last year when the president had the House and the Senate all under his control, and they never passed a budget. And then this year the president has introduced a budget which many in the press have called irresponsible, which the magazine The Economist has called dishonest. The president owes the American people more than what is being touted as a dishonest budget. We need to hear the facts, and we need specifics, and we didn't get either of those today, Brooke, from the President of the United States in his so-called major speech to the country.
That is your perspective, and I do want to ask you about the debt ceiling because, look, the deadline is potentially May, and at the very least, the second week of July, Republicans say you won't raise the debt ceiling without conditions. So, Senator Barrasso, you're a member of GOP leadership. You all haven't even decided amongst yourselves maybe what those conditions may be to merit that. Let me just ask you, are we talking spending caps? Are we talking spending cuts, balanced budget amendments? What are we talking about here?
You're talking about something that is significant that sends a significant signal to the country and to the markets and to the world, to the rest of the world. I mean, we're borrowing so much money. So much of our debt is owed to China. 41 cents of every dollar we spent last year was borrowed money.
What are those conditions?
It's a straitjacket on the spending. It's a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution. It is a significant signal that says, yes, we are serious about getting the spending and the debt under control, and the president has fallen very short of that.
Are the two sides going to be able to make this agreement by July, before we hit the ceiling?
Well, the debt ceiling is coming. There'll be a deadline there. The House and the Senate are both going to need to pass this, and at this point, I'm not willing to vote to increase the debt ceiling. I think that would not be a responsible thing to do.
You are
to
not.
Just do business more of the same.
Senator John Barrasso, appreciate you coming on. Thank you.
Thanks, Brooke.